Hello, YouTube. This is part 3 of the spectacular failure of the Star Wars Hotel by Ginny. I don't remember what her last name is. Anyway, but we're still trucking along. It's, 4 hours long. I'm 2 hours into it. I'm so mad for this girl with her experience. I'm so mad. Good night, Dalton. I'm so butthurt for her. I'm gonna be honest. Disney, what the fuck? What the fuck? I do have some just kind of like, I don't really trust Disney apps. And like finding out like, hey, basically your entire experience is based off this app and it working for you. And I'd be like, oh, so I'm gonna have a terrible time because it's not gonna work for me because technology hates me. Cool. Awesome. Hate that for me. Like just $6,000. Bitch. Are you serious? 6,000? Oh my God. Okay, anyway. Grab your snackies, grab your bevies. Let me know what you're eating or drinking down below, and let's get to watching. I got feelings.
Attractions. The main selling point of Star Cruiser is meant to be the...
What? Oh no. God. No! Oh my God. My phone keeps falling off. Oh, what? Now it's not working? I saw that you played RIP, but it didn't do the RIP thing. I think sound alerts are broken, I'm gonna be honest. Anyway, I'm sorry that my phone keeps falling off because I've been ridiculous and it's just kind of precariously, like, sitting on top of my screen. Oh my God, I was not expecting that. I was not, oh, that was my titty, I'm sorry. I was not expecting this at all, and that's hilarious.
Immersion, or in a broader sense, the choose-your-own-adventure interactivity. But that could be a little hard to market. So most of the ads focused on 2 activities that happen on the ship, which are basically mini-games. This was a horrible idea because in the promotional material, both of these experiences looked lame as hell. Like, if they were added as a kids' activity to the theme park, free with admission, people would probably think they were cute, but given the infamous price tag on the Star Cruiser, the unanimous reaction was, that's it? So, let's cover both of the activities. First, I'll go over bridge training.
Hit all the buttons.
Everyone does this at least twice. The first one, which is the training session, is already on your schedule before you arrive. A crew member divides you into groups and you rotate through each of the 4 different control modules. There are gunners, shields, loaders, and engineering. For gunners, obviously you're going to be shooting at stuff on the big screen.
So you're going to aim, I'm going to fire when you're on the target. How's our leasing process going? It's great.
The screen for this task looks awful. There are so many targeting reticles and random garbage to shoot all over the screen, but this is probably still the most desirable task of the 4 because you do get to game on the big screen.
Let's take a look at your metrics.
Okay.
Loaders also work using the big screen, but it's like a crane game where you're trying to grab stuff out of space.
Activate grabbing. Oh, you're flying. I'm grabbing. Ooh.
You work together in a pair, so one person is driving and the other person is rotating and grabbing. Let's grab, team.
Grabbing.
Yes.
Shields have their own display, and I would compare it to Team Pong. Everyone is sliding
Team
their
Pong.
shields from left to right to protect the center area from missiles. Even though it's a simple game, I do think the table you play it at is visually cool looking. Engineering, you're just looking at the little screen in front of you and toggling switches.
Whoa.
So I did Smuggler's Run once. I hate to say it. You end up like, it is so frustrating when one of the people on your like thing, like in your little group is like this little kid that's not paying attention and is not into it at all. And so like you're basically failing because the little kid isn't doing their job. or like the parents of the little kid are just like the little kid's just doing like crazy stuff. Like, look at all these buttons I can press. And the parents aren't playing along. They're just filming the kid. So like the parents are supposed to be doing something and they're not doing anything. So you're failing. It's so frustrating. I hate that shit. It's like, it is worse than being in school and like having a group project and you're the only one doing it. It's worse because you're spending money. Like, I'm so mad. Thank you, Bash. I hate it. I'm like, great. I'm having to be in a group that I didn't choose because am here with one other person or whatever. And we need like 6 or 7 people to be here. And like the other people aren't doing anything. So my experience sucks. I hate this.
Attention on deck. Pull my eyes.
Basically, they show certain switch positions on the screen, and you just have to toggle the switches in front of you to match those.
If you have any questions, that is probably the hardest one to do.
Oh.
Jess and Brooke will be walking around, okay? No worries.
Wait, alright.
And
Did
then
he give us
last but
any
not least,
instructions? He was just like, you're gonna
good
press
job.
buttons.
Keep
That's
your
the hardest
shield
one.
strings on
Anyway.
by the green bars
Moving on.
that indicate how
Incoming station controls training code.
Okay, what the hell are we doing? Okay, you just push the ones that light up. Mash lit buttons.
This was definitely the most boringest one. Oh, and at one point during this activity, one chosen kid gets to punch it and send the ship to light speed. I think it's funny how much the marketing made of the punch it moment. Like, we've all always wanted to be told to punch it and then punch it to light speed. And it's like, I don't know if that's true. I think when characters say punch it in the movies, it's memorable and exciting because they're usually in some action scene and you know that they're about to go really fast. Maybe it would feel more thrilling if there was a physical consequence to punching it, like if we were in a really aggressive motion simulator that's going to lurch excitingly, but obviously we are not. It's more of like a photo op for the family of the kid who's doing it than like a thing that's actually fun to do. At some
Ray's joke about like, man, why do they even let kids into Disney World? There's like this whole thing about how it's usually mothers that are complaining, are the outfit, the mask makes it really hard for me to focus on what's happening. But there's like this whole like anti-Disney adult thing where like parents are like, Disney adults are ruining Disney World. They shouldn't be allowed to come in unless they have kids. Like there's that whole like thing. And I'd be like, cool, I mind my own business and I actually do the things they tell me to do. Whereas your kid does not. Like, shut up. Raise your kid better.
At some point during your training, something goes wrong to make it more exciting, and what that is depends on the time slot you're scheduled in, because remember, every element of the story is running on a common timeline.
We've received a priority
Weird.
alert signal from the Resistance.
Priority alert, that means it's an urgent message or it could be a warning. Yes, we can't have resistance.
So it sounds like sometimes you run into enemy ships and have to defend yourself, sometimes you get a secret transmission from the Resistance, but I believe the most common thing is that you run into an
I'm eating
asteroid
chips.
field.
Asteroid, we're gonna have to grab them.
What?
We are likely to intersect the trajectory.
We're going to have to grab all of them.
The reason I believe that is, all the windows on the Star Cruiser are synchronized to one another. The Imagineers were very proud of this element in the marketing. No matter where you are on the ship, the view out your window will reflect the view outside all the other windows. So, if you're in your room looking out the window, you'll start to notice that approximately every 45 minutes you're in another asteroid field. On the whole, I thought this minigame was pretty fun.
All right, sisters, we're grounded. You're down.
It almost saw us.
Each of the positions plays differently, and I think it's nice that every group gets to try every station. You don't just get stuck at an unfun one and have to stay there. There's definitely a bit of a learning curve.
Do we do that? Oh no! We were so fast though!
And the cast member walking us through it was like visibly annoyed by how people kept screwing up their instructions, walking to the wrong station, and mashing random buttons. I don't know who was doing that.
one more time, copy front to side, side to mid-deck, mid-deck to back, back down the ramp to the front.
What? Like, people don't follow fucking directions? Imagine.
But it's high energy and it doesn't last so long that you get bored with it.
Your Corgi system.
Quirky.
Coordinates.
It's time to do a thing in the quirky system.
On day 2, having taught you how to use each of the bridge stations, they bring you back for another story event. Sometimes 2, depending on how your story plays out, because the day 2 bridge missions are meant to be specific to your story path.
Yeah, SK does have data, vital information for the survival of the resistance.
Oh my goodness.
So we can't have
Look at the alien history.
Oh my god, very different vibes in the different rooms. They don't even know the danger.
the first order goes about the waxing. And you know that
So if you're on the resistance side, you help shoot at the First Order blockade. If you're a smuggler, you help grab some cargo to smuggle aboard. Since there's no longer the story pretense of training, it appears on your schedule like, the captain would like to speak to you on the bridge at 3 p.m. Then you tap your band at the door to confirm you're one of the, 30-ish people who unlocked this scene. These later bridge scenes were much more fun because they didn't have to go over logistics anymore. Everyone has already had their demo round, they know how all the stations work, so your captain can just yell, "Rotate stations!" and everyone is ready to jump into the mini games.
You can do it!
As far as the gameplay, I'm sure you've already gathered that it's extremely basic, more primitive than anything you can get on your phone. Like, if this gameplay was just put in an arcade cabinet at a Dave & Buster's, nobody would even want to play it. But obviously, they've dressed it up. You're in a cool spaceship room with a big window into space, and they've got live actors coming in to impress upon you the stakes of what you're doing.
Resistance starts to analyze the hyperspace tracking system. They can find a way to defeat it.
So with all this in mind, it's fine. People who do it will like it well enough. I don't think it's much to write home about, but it was a fine enough gameplay element for this kind of experience. And for my sister and I, it was pretty much the only time we got to participate in the story, so we were just excited to be doing something. Okay, next we'll look at lightsabers. This was the other one pushed hard in the ads. This training is taught by the Saja. Obviously, it's weird that Jedi training, which has largely been framed in the movies as special and spiritual, is now being offered as a cruise ship activity like it's shuffleboard. But there is an official tie-in comic explaining the backstory. You see, when the ship was new, a Jedi Master saved the ship's special compass from this stupid-looking evil cyborg. And the captain at the time was so grateful, he built a lightsaber training pod on board to honor her. It doesn't really make sense, but that's the explanation. So, the Saja will be teaching us beginner lightsaber techniques with the help of a training remote that shoots lasers. Sort of like the one Luke Skywalker used. But obviously our training remotes don't fly like that, they're just attached to the wall. Useless fun fact, not all the Saja, but a lot of the Saja are female brunettes with vaguely Daisy Ridley-esque faces, and I think that's because a lot of them are cross-trained to play Rey. Or at least the Rey that's way up on the balcony in the fight scene. Probably to maximize their use of the actors, since I don't think Rey is there on day 1. It might also be to save on costs associated with lightsaber stunt training. Now they can just train one person instead of twice as many. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's Reys everywhere. In this activity, everyone gets to try their hands at lightsabering, and there are a couple different rounds to this. In the first round, you're told that a guide light will appear ahead of the laser, so you get a couple seconds to line your lightsaber up with where the laser is going to be. The laser fires, and then the lightsaber vibrates and plays a sound effect as though the laser is actually impacting it. This round is obviously really boring, and that's because in an early leaked patent for this minigame, we can see that this whole first round is simply the calibration phase in disguise. They're very braggadocious about that, our game doesn't need calibration before gameplay can begin because we integrate it into the gameplay. And it's okay, but did you really? Are we calling this gameplay? Anyway, as is pretty obvious, the computer is leading you through a series of basic positions with your lightsaber so it can learn your dimensions and incorporate it into the next round. When I was doing my first round, I was kind of hopping around from foot to foot, primarily because I had seen that Josh D'Amaro ad and thought he looked so uncool the way he did that, and I didn't want to repeat his mistakes. But then the Saja had to come by and tell me to stop wiggling around so much because I think I was in danger of compromising the calibration. But it all worked out. You'll see in a second. In the second round, the time between the guide light and the laser blast is slightly shorter, so it's marginally harder but still not overly exciting. But now they add 2 people behind the lightsaber wielder using these things. This is a reflective shield capable of blocking blaster bolts. I think canonically this shield is built using kyber crystals like a lightsaber is. Maybe a whole bunch of kyber crystals because it lights up in different colors. I saw a lot of people saying this has crazy implications for the canon, but I think it doesn't. I don't think they ever say it blocks lightsabers, just lasers, which doesn't seem like a big deal. And this thing is really heavy and awkward to hold, so I fully understand why Jedi prefer to just carry a lightsaber.
Also, she looks really cute in this little outfit. In this little outfit, she looks cute.
And deflect blasts with that. That said, The shield is pretty uncool, right? They obviously just incorporated this into the experience to try to think of something for people to do when they're not using the lightsabers. So they're like, two people stand behind them and catch the extra lasers that get past their lightsabers, and that doesn't make any sense. And I'm crouching around with this big clumsy shield feeling like a total fool. So eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed something in each round. We have that guide light letting us know where the laser blast is going to hit. But we also have these little sparkles around the training remote. These twinkly lights are divided into quadrants, so while they won't show you exactly where to aim, they do let you know the general direction the blast will go. In the first 2 rounds, these are redundant since we have the guide light. But in the break before the final round, the Saja offers context for these twinkles. She doesn't acknowledge them directly, but she says that those in tune with the Force can sense where blasts are about to come from. So that's what the twinkles are. In canon, they're not something we're meant to be seeing with the naked eye. They are the Force giving us intuition about where to block. At this point, the Saja teaches us a little chant for team morale. And then she says she thinks we're ready to rely on...
I don't know what is going on today with my phone holder. Other than it's pissing me off. Why does this keep happening?
And then she says she thinks we're ready to rely on the Force to block the beams. So for the final round, the blasts come quickly with no guide light, only those twinkles to guide you. My sister was not paying attention during this explanation, but that's actually good news for me because it gave me additional insight into how the tech works. If you look closely, you'll see the major difference in this final round. In the first 2 rounds, we were trying to aim where the laser would go. But in this final round, the laser is actually tracking us and aiming for our blades. The computer even seems to hold its fire indefinitely until you swing into the correct quadrant. The whole concept with the Force twinkles was just to get us to constrain our blade movements to a smaller area so it would be less visually apparent that the lasers were following us and not the other way around. To an unsuspecting participant, and especially a kid, it'll look like they're doing a great job guessing the precise angle of the laser every time with lightning fast reflexes. Since Lindsay didn't notice the twinkles, she was pinwheeling her blade all over the place, so it was very apparent to me what was going on. You can literally see the lasers correcting midair trying to follow her. So I think conceptually that's a fun gimmick. It allows for some sense of escalation, even if individual guests would not be skilled enough to keep up. It simulates the experience of practicing and improving at something all in under 20 minutes. And I loved our Saja. I thought she was funny and was good at retaining people's names and involving everyone in the experience. Unlike the bridge training, this one you do only once and it's never utilized again. In fact, this is the only time you'll even be holding a lightsaber on board. It's forbidden to walk around with them on the ship, I assume due to paranoia that you'll get overexcited and swing into another guest or break a prop. Even if you buy the $200 ship-exclusive saber in the gift shop, you're only allowed to take it out, stand still to pose for photos, and then you're expected to store it in your room. So I guess you could say that should enhance the novelty of this experience. But when you imagine being the protagonist in a Star Wars movie, I don't think you're picturing doing target practice. And Disney...
That $200 lightsaber should be included in the $6,000 price tag. I swear to God. I don't care. I don't care. It should be included.
Obviously understands this because they've already done a lightsaber training experience in the theme parks. And in that one, after teaching you some basic training positions, they parade out a Darth Vader or a Kylo Ren to duel the little kids. This show always reminded me of that scene in Space Jam where the bad guys want to imprison Michael Jordan in their theme park and force him to let kids win at basketball. Anyway, such a story moment wouldn't work in an immersive LARP experience, right? They can't have Kylo Ren showing up every 30 minutes. How would they make it work in the story that any of the guests get to defeat the villain, let alone all of them? But therein lies the problem, right? Even in the suspended disbelief of the story, you're still not doing anything very exciting. You're just training, so there's no suspense. It's just a mildly diverting video game demo. If it was free in the theme park and you had to wait 20 minutes to do it, I could see it being reasonably popular, but not something you'd go out of your way to do every time. And just like the bridge training, it doesn't really work as a featured attraction for such an expensive experience. Oh, I should also talk about the engineering bay. That was featured in a lot of the ads ads too, usually just as a visually interesting backdrop. They never indicated what you would do there, but it looked like it would be something. Before I went, I thought maybe they would schedule groups of 10 or so people at a time to go in there for a story reason, and then it could be like a miniature escape room. Like, you have to gather environmental clues and use those to put the machinery at the correct settings to achieve a goal in the story. And they could have a cast member in the room with you to keep things moving if people got stuck.
This girly pop, this little chickadee, she had a lot of expectations going in this. And like, I can't even fault her for it because it cost $6,000 fucking dollars to do. But like, I'm kind of like, you had too high expectations. I'm gonna be honest. Like, because especially when you have a large number of people and they're like, oh, it's immersive and you get to pick your own storyline and stuff. I, first of all, am a pessimist. I've mentioned this. I just don't believe people. I don't believe this is going to be all sunshine, butterflies, great experience. First of all, you're putting me in a situation where I have to interact with other people. This is my nightmare. This is why I don't go on cruises, like actual cruises. But like, I just don't expect this to work out, and I expect this to be kind of just vague, and everything that you do is just kind of like meh, is what I would expect, which is why, you know, I didn't ever even look into possibly doing this, because that price tag is absolutely ridiculous. I don't fucking think so. But that's just me. I don't know.
Engineering room.
Okay. Who's in there? Whoa, what's this?
So I was wrong. Basically, the engineering bay is like an activity area with 10 or so baby-level puzzles. Some are like Simon, where a terminal pings in a certain order and then you replicate it. Some of them have screens showing switches in particular positions, and then you have to move them around to match. Sometimes when you succeed at a puzzle, it rewards you by playing a sound effect or making steam shoot out or shutting off an alarm that's been sounding.
Oh my gosh, that's a carbon freezing system. That's important.
But as far as I could tell, there's no story incentive to do any of that. It's just busy work.
Look in here, it's the core. Lindsay, look, the core.
I feel kind of bad because you can tell now that we know that like none of her story things actually have worked, and she's just kind of wandering around like kind of sad, like trying to do stuff, but nothing is working out. None of her story things are working. So she basically isn't getting to experience a storyline. It really feels like she's trying very hard to be like the silver lining, like with what, like, oh my God, look, it's the core. Oh my God, that's this thing and that's important. And I feel so bad. I feel so bad that she spent that kind of money and like didn't get, like, even like her high expectations are one thing. She didn't even get what she was supposed to get. It's so upsetting.
Wow, I can feel it humming. All that power. Whoa, we can go in. We can go inside.
I love the core.
I love the core.
Fix it. Okay. Lindsay, press those buttons.
Man.
Whoa! Even if you fix something, in a couple minutes it'll reset for the next person to play anyway, so you're not really accomplishing anything. I think most people figured that out because every time we went in it was pretty empty, and we'd see other people our age walking in, taking a look around, and quickly leaving because it wasn't very interesting. The only people sticking around were a couple moms with children under the age of 4, because that's the age demographic whose interest will be held by something like this. Which, it's good to have something for everyone, but at this price point, like, why didn't you just take them to the park by your house if they're getting so little out of this that you're just trying to keep them distracted? Oh, I should also point out that at foot level there's this escape hatch which connects the engineering room to the brig.
That's cool. Look, it slides. It's a secret tunnel out of the brig.
It was locked when we saw it. There must have been some story event where one of the characters locked in the brig escaped via this hatch, so that's fun to imagine, but we weren't part of any storyline that got to use it. I read that it's possible to get summoned to the engineering bay for story events, like you meet Sammy there to save the ship, or the general there to sabotage the ship. So I guess in that case there would be an element of satisfaction, like there's at least the pretense that what you're doing matters. We never got any of those events though, and even if we had happened to go to the engineering room while one was going on, we would have been turned away. When a room is in use for a scheduled story moment, they station someone at the door and make you tap your bracelet, so unless the app verifies you've been invited by a character, you aren't allowed entry. Anyway, since we didn't get to do that, the room seemed like kind of a pointless diversion.
Yes! Finally!
Okay, but I like hitting random buttons.
I think I'm doing it right.
My impression is that basically you can go to the engineering room outside of exclusive story scenes, but there isn't really a reason to. And while we were on board, I didn't realize that that was the case because I didn't know about those story moments we didn't get. So here again, I was frustrated and at a loss. Like, it really seems like this room is for something, but what? I must be doing something wrong. I had really figured there would be something to discover there, but nope. And there was one last thing I'd loosely call an attraction. A lot of fan pages treated this like a big spoiler, but I think they showed a clip of it in one of the ads anyway. But in the Climate Simulator courtyard, you saw they had all those rocks stacked up in the middle. Well, they had one interactive thing in there. The Sajak could select you for force training, and then they had some of the rocks rigged to magnets so you could pull a rock toward you. And sometimes it would knock over all the other piled rocks, which made it look a little more dramatic. I know that sounds really simple, but this is another thing they dressed up with the performers by having like a weirdly intimate interaction with you. I don't know. But anyway, I know this is really simple, but I do think it's a cute idea.
That was incredible. How do you feel?
And then she keeps that rock because that's the one with the magnet.
It obviously didn't happen for us. It didn't happen for most guests. There's no guaranteed way to have this happen. You can't unlock it by doing a certain thing in your gameplay or getting a high enough loyalty score with anyone. It's just something the employees randomly select you for based on vibes. I think they often went for really little kids, birthday boys of all ages, or, you know, well-known theme park vloggers. And it seems like maybe 3 guests get to do this per sale date. So while I think it's a cute idea, I do think it's a little frustrating that this is one of the only instances of the set being rigged with an interactive special effect, and by design the odds of seeing it are extremely slim. Mechanically, it's a basic parlor trick, but if the ship had had a lot of small touches like this happening all the time, the overall effect would have been dazzling. Little things that move, that you feel you're interacting with, but no. Part 12, Supplementary Activities. These were getting a lot of attention online, so I had better address them, although they were a very small part of the experience. Also, I tried to dress like a Saja for this part. See, I've got the sleeves. They can't all be winners. So on Star Cruiser, there are a handful of filler activities that are basically intended for you to do in your downtime between other activities. All of the activities I mentioned in this section are completely optional, they have 0 impact on the story, and you will not be penalized for sitting them out, which most people did. Some of these supplementary activities carried more hidden fees. Like they had model ship building as an activity, but you had to go buy the model ship kit from the gift shop, so I don't really get it. I don't know why you wouldn't just do that when you got home. They had a mixology lesson with the bartender called the Cantina Chronicles, where he would make you non-alcoholic versions of all the specialty drinks and then tell you in-universe lore about all the ingredients.
This drink would reveal if they had true intentions. So they would take a sip right before the deal, and after, if it tasted so sweet, you would actually lose the ability to speak.
Like a lot of the drinks had planets of origin in the Star Wars universe, or ingredients were like the eggs of a creature.
Neat.
I know one of them had venom in it, and then they would give you a little eyedropper of antidote to chase it with. Cantina Chronicles was supposed to happen at noon on day 2, and it overlapped with the theme park trip, so I really wanted to go and get all that sweet lore, but it just didn't seem reasonable. But then when I got home, I read online that a lot of guests did go out of their way to try to go to it, and on a lot of the trips, it was just canceled without warning. Like, they would be sitting in the bar looking at their phones like, shouldn't the bartender be here by now? And then before their very eyes, it would be deleted from the schedule. I would have been so mad if I skipped something else and then that happened. So I guess I'm glad I didn't go to it, but it does sound like it would have been fun if it happened. Later in the life of the Star Cruiser, they modified the Cantina Chronicles to something called Spirits of Adventure. So it was the same thing, but the drinks were all alcoholic. And that version was $49 per person. So it's kind of unfortunate to me that they replaced a free thing with a thing that costs money on this all-inclusive trip.
Because they fucked up so bad they weren't making money, so then they started trying to squeeze you of as much money as possible after already doing that.
Anyway, then they had free activities, which were more like party games. Like they had one called Know Your Co-Pilot, and to my understanding, that was like a Star Wars version of the Newlywed Game. There are sabacc card game lessons, and of course that hollow sabacc table in the lounge. The table is cool because it uses a Pepper's Ghost illusion to make it look like there are holograms of your cards in front of you. They only had this one table, so it was usually occupied with a short line to use it, like a swing set at recess or something. But I wasn't really trying to waste precious time doing a digital card game anyway, so I was happy just to see it. Later, they ran a sabacc tournament. I had assumed before going that the sabacc lessons were there because some smuggler story moment involved playing sabacc against a character actor. That actually did not happen. The sabacc is entirely a filler activity, but if you win the tournament, you get a big commemorative coin. I wish I had that big coin. It's just not fair. At one point, they set up an obstacle course in the atrium and had kids race the remote-controlled droids through it. They have Sector Set, which is space bingo, and if you win, you get the big coin. And then there are the infamous Ryloth dance lessons where they teach you moves to the alien pop star's new song. Most of these are lame and not worth the money you've paid to be here, but as I said, most guests will not be doing these activities anyway. The way I see it, the schedule was pretty packed, and it had a lot of awkward 30 to 40 minute gaps between things where it would be hard to really know what to do with yourself, so I think these are to fill those gaps. Even though I was not interested in doing any of these, I had intended to try to make it to most of them to get footage so you could see what they were like. And even with those intentions, I didn't make it to most of them. But I felt like walking past and seeing them happening helped add a little life to the ship. I've never been on a real cruise, but whenever I've seen them on TV, they seem to always have old people doing Pilates by the pool and playing bingo, so I like that they have all this corny fake stuff to make it feel like a real corny cruise. I think that's cute. It was probably expected that most guests wouldn't bother with these, but that's part of why I think it's funny that they actually included them. So for that reason, I think these bonus activities are pretty charming, and they certainly don't take anything away. I'm sorry, because I feel like everyone was waiting for me to throw shade at Space Bingo, but I'm not going to. I think it's cute. Part 13, the schedule. You may have picked up on it by now, but the Star Cruiser's schedule was unrelenting. Basically, every minute of the day was booked with something, and if you thought the schedule looked full when you arrived, you would soon discover that new things are dropped into it on the fly. Theoretically. You could access it in your app, which you were expected to look at constantly, and most of the things on it were 30 minutes or less, so we were constantly running around. Even among positive reviews, I've seen countless people talk about leaving feeling drained, both physically and emotionally.
Because it seems stressful. It seems anxiety-inducing. Like, I have to be here, I have to be at this spot in this amount of time, or I'm going to miss out, and I paid $6,000 to be here. Like, Jesus Christ.
In my opinion, seems like a bad thing. Day 1 of Star Cruiser, you can check in as early as 1 p.m., and the story ends between 10 and 11 p.m. The lounge stays open till 11, and that might be one of your only chances to spend time there, so you might want to. And we stayed up a little later than that so I could get ambient footage of the atrium when it was empty. On day 2, the activity begins as early as 8:40 a.m. But if you really want your money's worth, you ought to eat the themed breakfast, so you should really start your day closer to 8 a.m. God forbid anyone who goes wants to shower between days 1 and 2, wear makeup, do any kind of skincare routine, do their hair in the morning, spend time putting on elaborate themed costumes as Disney has encouraged them to do. God forbid anyone gets to their room at the end of the night and wants to talk to their roommates about what they've experienced thus far. It's just accepted that everybody is going to have a sleep deficit unless there's some kind of automaton that shuffles into their room at night, falls face first onto the bed, goes directly to sleep, then rises in the same clothes the following morning and shuffles directly out the door again. So if you've gotten up at 8 a.m., you should know that day 2 runs all the way until 11 p.m. again. Day 3 is checkout day, and on the sample itinerary it says checkout is at 10, but it actually ended up being earlier than that. They assigned random half-hour slots in which each specific room was meant to leave, which could be hours earlier. Ours was actually one of the latest groups to leave at 9 a.m., but they started knocking on our doors at around 8 to make sure we were actually awake and getting ready, because they have a really short turnaround to flip the rooms for the next crop of guests at 1. Again, this doesn't feel very luxurious. I don't think I've had this happen at any other hotel I've stayed at, ever. Another thing is, I really like themed environments, and even though I didn't find the environments exceptionally detailed, there were some spaces on the ship I might have liked to hang out in longer to absorb the atmosphere. As I said earlier, I thought the lounge was really cool, but I only went in there twice, and neither occasion exceeded 15 minutes. We always had to guiltily run to it, order a drink, and try to chug it before we had to get up and sprint to the next thing on our itinerary. Because on the Star Cruiser, time is very
stressful.
literally money. So on one of our brief visits
Yeah.
to the lounge, we ordered some of the bar food, including the plate of beautiful cheese balls, which I love, the ones that arrived in the cloche full of smoke, and we didn't even get to finish them. If anyone can finish a cheese ball, it's us, but nope, we were already late for lightsaber training, and we had to run there drinks in hand, just like the Jedi of old. I barely even managed to
Jedi
get
of
footage of
old.
that space bingo. It was happening literally while we were trying to eat the cheese balls. So I would like stand up and sprint to the other room, film some bingo, and then sprint back and keep shoveling.
And this girl is doing all this while not having like her thing unlocked for the first day. Like the first day, her story stuff didn't work. So she wasn't on like a dedicated story and their apps were fucked up. But she's this busy. Wild.
Cheese into my mouth. Everything moved at a breakneck pace, and I don't mean that as a compliment. It's not the kind of fast pace that feels thrilling. I would describe it as frantic. And 2 straight days of frantic on what is ostensibly sold as a vacation is not ideal and is very mentally taxing. I think one could have had a decent time hanging out on the ship and soaking up the ambiance and ignoring the gameplay entirely. In fact, I think most adults would happily fall into that category because I think they would surely find the simplicity of the gameplay pretty unstimulating. And whenever the itinerary gets posted anywhere online, everybody's first question is like, well, are you allowed to just miss stuff on the schedule? And the answer is technically yes, but practically no. By this I mean you're not in high school. You could have a full schedule on your phone and simply not show up for any of it.
They get to choose who they want to interact with, or they get to choose to sit and watch. So there's so many different ways to engage. You don't have to participate if you don't want to.
But remember, the immersive roleplay element was Disney's entire justification for jacking up the price so high. So if you're going to pay to go and not do the gameplay, you might as well just throw handfuls of cash down your garbage disposal. This is like asking, can you go to your local theater and buy 20 movie tickets only to sit in the lobby for 2 days straight? You probably can, but it would be really weird. But if one goes to the Star Cruiser and does participate in the game, they might be sort of miserable because they'll be running on too little sleep, never have a moment to relax, and not necessarily feel fulfilled by the events they do attend. And of course, there was no transparency about which events might be cool and have some kind of special effect or interactive element, and which events were just short story tableau, which you would witness from a middle distance over a sea of other guests' heads, unless they started without you. I personally really like an active vacation. I like a theme park trip, an excursion around a city, a museum, maybe an obstacle course. I'm not a spa person. I'm not a lie by the pool person. I'm not a get in the pool person. I'm not a pool person. I don't like pools. I can't swim. This was a bad example. My point is, I didn't think I would be easily exhausted by an experience like this because I'm usually well prepared to be on my feet and doing exciting things all day on little or no sleep. I mentioned that our cabin was really convenient to the dining room. I also mentioned that I didn't have much of an appetite by dinner on day 2, and I kind of buried the lead on that. Truthfully, I felt really, really run down by that point in our trip. I actually got up from our table in the middle of dinner and ran back to our room because I thought I was going to throw up. And then when I got to the room, I was like, oh, no, I'm not. That's not what this feeling is. So I just kind of like stood there in our doorway, like enjoying that the room was quiet. I thought about taking some Tylenol, but that wasn't what was wrong either. I was just really exhausted. So yeah, instead I just ended up standing in our room for a while and like staring at my own reflection in the mirror of our tiny bathroom. And,
Jesus,
and I gave
girl.
myself a pep talk. Like, oh,
That's not great. No wonder this thing closed down in 18 months.
okay, it's the last night. I can't miss the finale. It's just a few more hours. And then I kind of like rallied and went back to dinner. I'm just glad this happened on our second night, so I didn't miss a second of the dinner show on night 1. But anyway, I hope from what I just described, you said to yourself, that sounds like a really weird thing to have happen on a luxury vacation experience.
Yeah.
Because it is. I have never had that happen before or since, while working, while traveling, anytime. The trip just like broke my body in some unfathomable way. And like, we didn't even utilize every scheduled minute of our trip. We had the latest wake-up time on the final day. On day 2, we slept in a little and had a full breakfast. And we didn't even really drink. Like, there were a lot of cocktails I wanted to try because they were themed. But I think I had 2 over the span of the first day and 1 in the afternoon on the second day.
I wouldn't have done it at all.
And then I just didn't have time for any more. So I think all things considered, we were a little better equipped to handle this than others might have been. And it still ran us ragged. I really can't imagine trying to do Star Cruiser with little kids. tickets or if you yourself have any health problems. Like you could, and you could just accept that you were going to miss a lot of things in order to fit in breaks and naps. But there again, if you don't participate in something, you're throwing away $2 per person per minute. So here again, the price becomes an issue. If the hotel was cheap, or even cheaper, it would be way easier to say, just pay for the trip, do what you like, miss what you're not interested in, and you can always come back and do what you missed. But for what it cost, that was an entirely unreasonable suggestion. Part 14.
Yeah, I
the
agree.
Excursion.
Too
So,
expensive.
like many real cruises, this experience has a shore excursion to Batu. Batu is the in-universe planet name for Star Wars Land in Hollywood Studios. So on day 2, you have an excursion where you take a ship down to the planet. I'm trying to tell you that you take a bus to the theme park. Not to be a hater, but I actually think it's kind of stupid that in the meta-narrative, a luxury cruise line or whatever intentionally go to Batu. In universe, this location is supposed to be a backwater planet ruled by crime lords with blaster holes all over the walls and an active military presence. They try to make an excuse by saying the Halcyon took its maiden voyage here back when the planet was nice, but I don't buy it. I understand that we have to go to Batu because that's what they already built for the theme park, but I personally think it would have been more immersive if they had pretended they were taking us to someplace more touristy, like Naboo or Canto Bight, or maybe even Endor as a reference to the original Star Tours. And then in the story, we could be derailed by a resistance mission, or maybe the ship comes under attack and we're forced to stop in Batu for repairs or parts or something. And the cast members could act all apologetic about the change in route and say things like, if you do decide to go planet side, please be cautious. This is a very rough planet. I don't know, that just seems more exciting.
that
to
would have
me.
been cute,
And also like
probably.
an easier way to tie in gameplay missions. So this was another aspect of our grueling schedule. We were supposed to catch our shuttle to Batu at like 9 a.m. I think they just randomly assigned different times to different cabins to try to keep the line from backing up too much because they only had like a couple buses. But the story hadn't ended until like 11 p.m. the night prior, and we got into sleep even later, so I wasn't going anywhere at 9 a.m. So this was the only time we just defied the schedule. We slept in a little longer, we got breakfast, and we were like an hour late. And it turned out it didn't matter. In fact, by taking the shuttle at 10 a.m., we were able to walk on with no line. There was a ton of discourse online about the shuttle. Everybody was roasting it because they found out through leaked images of the exterior that the shuttle was a box truck. And I guess there was some perceived indignity in putting high-paying guests in a box truck. To be quite honest,
I mean, kinda. That's a choice. As a box truck. Is that safe? Is that safe?
I don't understand that at all, and I think it's kind of stupid. Like, we all knew it wasn't going to be a real spaceship, right? So it was obviously going to be built in some kind of vehicle.
That's because there's like this thing of like, that doesn't seem safe. Like, that does not seem safe. That's probably why people are upset. Like, I don't know. I don't know how safe that is, but it doesn't feel safe. I would not feel safe about that. I mean, I guess like the insides look nice or whatever, but like you couldn't just outfit a bus? I mean, I guess the thing is like, is a bus safer than a box truck? But still.
So who really cares what kind of vehicle the themed seating area is built inside of? If they had instead scraped the innards out of a school bus or a limousine to build the exact same passenger compartment, would that make any material difference? So no, I couldn't care less.
I mean, just one's made to transport humans and one's not.
That this shuttle was a box truck. Anyway, you go inside and it's themed to look like a little spaceship. I had heard they'd be using more simulated window tech, but they opted to instead not have any windows. I won't roast them too hard on that because I think having simulated moving windows in a randomly jostling box would probably make everybody puke all over each other. They do have a spaceship sound play and lights flash when the engines kick on, which I thought was kind of cute. But I'm going to be honest, I was disappointed by the shuttle, and here's why. I had heard from promo materials that it was going to be driven by a droid, which I guess canonically it is, but I had wrongly assumed that we would have a little window through which we would see a sliver of cockpit and then the head of a droid pilot. I wasn't expecting much, probably not a full body figure like they had in Star Tours, but they could have at least done like a head on a stick that could raise and lower and swivel side to side. We would only see a little bit of it from behind anyway, so it wouldn't need that much detail. A good example of this kind of thing is the King Kong ride at Universal Studios. They have animatronic drivers in every truck. Actually, they have a whole cast of different
Shout out to my friend Drew, who used to be the lead on this ride and told me all about it and let me
animatronic
ride
drivers.
twice.
They all have different names and different personalities with different dialogue. It's crazy. But no, instead in this shuttle, they have a little square area that looks like it should be a window to a cockpit, but it's opaque and doesn't open. We hear the droid that's driving talking over the comms system, and there's a little plaque indicating that if we could see him, this droid would look like Rex from Star Tours, but we never do see him. It's so sad. I'm sure they logistically could have put a droid in there, and I'm sure some Imagineer suggested it, and then corporate decided they would just rather not spend the money to do it. And that,
or like make it to where like it's like you see the droid's shadow moving, right? Like at least have like the shadow of the droid, you know, something.
that is not an attitude I want them to have for an experience that costs this much. I feel like this is just another one of those relatively small touches that could have gone a long way. Upon arrival, you disembark into this little tunnel that's blocked off for only Star Cruiser guests. And in the tunnel, they have a kind of concierge setup. So you can grab free water bottles, and in our case, free loaner umbrellas because it was pouring rain.
Oh my god! Ah! It's nice that they gave us umbrellas. Not so bad. No! No! It's so bad.
It's so bad.
I rained on so much. Oh, it's cold now, too.
They allot a good chunk of time for the theme park. You're meant to amuse yourself there until around 2 p.m. and the latest you can stay is 4. In that block of time, the buses between the hotel and the theme park run pretty much continuously, so if your family had never been to Star Wars Land, you would have flexibility to do all the upcharge experiences like the lightsaber, the droid, the cantina, shopping in general, but that would be a terrible waste of your time given how short the cruise is and how much it costs. I hope no one did that. Our plan was to only go to Batu for the minimum time necessary to do all the stuff specific to Star Cruiser. The cruise package includes fast passes for the Millennium Falcon ride and the Rise of the Resistance ride, which is like a $20 value each, so that's something. And of course, the shuttle that takes you from the hotel to the park is a unique experience, so we had to leave the cruiser to do all that. This excursion is the first thing that happens on day 2, which means when you wake up, your app has put you on one of the story paths and populated a bunch of corresponding missions for you to complete. 2 of the missions are just to go on the rides. They work them into the story, so basically you get a text from a character on your storyline saying, I need you to report to this location. Scan your credentials at the gate for mission coordinates, by which they mean go to the right entrance and tap your band to use the fast pass that's been preloaded onto there. They've written the rides into every story path, so everybody gets to do those no matter who is texting them. If you're a Star Cruiser guest, they give you a special pin to wear so that employees in the theme park will know you're doing the hotel experience and can theoretically
Eva, I'm sorry that like...
Honestly, Epcot has so much stuff to do, so IRLY want to go back there. Cheer one.
Okay, I don't know what my sound alerts are doing. They're being kind of finicky. I don't know. Yeah, Epcot has a lot of stuff. I like Epcot. I like Epcot specifically during their like Flower and Garden Festival and their Food and Wine Festival.
Interact with you in character and stuff. I say theoretically because, of course, that just didn't happen for us. And for the record, that shouldn't be those cast members' responsibility anyway. They're not getting a performance bump, but I just bring it up because it's another one of those expectation versus reality things. But we were like trying to lean into the idea that things might actually be interactive. So when we went up to the ride at the Fast Pass thing, I was like, Captain Kevin told me to report to you, and I did not get the same energy back at all. They were just like, what? Scan your fast pass. And so I did, but I felt like an idiot, again, is my point. Anyway, and imagine if you're the First Order, it's like Lieutenant Croy asking you to go spy on the Resistance or something. It doesn't actually matter. Basically, you use your fast pass, ride the ride, and text the character saying you did it, and they're just like, good work. Well, they're supposed to say good work. In my case, I got ghosted again.
Oh yeah, she's not responding.
Oh, that's normal.
Wow.
That's normal.
Like, she doesn't even care. Does she know how much I just did for her?
I'm all the way here. Why aren't you paying attention to me?
Oh, wow. Nothing.
But you don't actually do anything. You don't even actually have to go on the ride. Like, if it's broken down, you can just text and say you wrote it, and they're not gonna know. But you also have other missions while you're in the land, and these ones are interactive. I think we were offered 3 more missions, but we only did 2. You'll see in a minute. But all the other missions happen entirely in the app. I told you a little bit earlier about the Star Wars Datapad app game, out of which the Star Cruiser experience is built. And I told you about how its primary gameplay involved scanning QR QR codes on crates. Well, I'm sorry to say that that's what we'll be doing in Batu today. Just scanning lots of crates. You go to your text in the app and decide what mission you want to do first, and you'll have a text from a character asking you to scan all the crates in a particular location.
We have to find these crates.
There's like kind of here, I think.
Okay.
Oh, look, a scan point.
Ah.
Tools. Scan. All right. Analyze.
You scanned the crate.
Scanning. There's probably more to scan.
All these crates.
For variety, some of these QR codes are in
Okay.
sneakier locations, like tucked into a corner or low on the ground. So that was our theme park day, crawling around on the ground, scanning crates in a torrential downpour.
This is horrible. Oh my god, it's so wet.
Oh no.
Juggling my phone, my camera, and the umbrella, having to tap the wet screen multiple times to get anything done.
It's like a rhythm game. Oh, but my screen is wet. Okay. Yay!
Yeah, that is getting to be a problem.
Yeah.
Wet screens.
Especially when the timing matters when you tap your screen.
I should also mention that the umbrellas they loaned us were very cheap and would sometimes randomly spring shut, soaking my electronics and also chomping on my head like a bear trap.
No! I need shelter. Oh my god, no.
It happened to my sister first, and to be quite honest, I thought it was like a skill issue, but then a couple of minutes later it happened to me too, and we had 2 different umbrellas, so it was all the umbrellas. Our mission was for the Saja, so they wanted us to scan crates near the Lightsaber shop.
Was that all she wanted from us?
I'll check my comms. She probably sent me something
Let
new.
me check mine.
So we went to the place indicated in the picture on the app, and we scanned every crate, and nothing happened.
Where should we should go somewhere.
I thought I scanned everything.
Yeah, let's get out of here. Okay. It's too bad. It's
Yeah,
just too
this
bad.
seems. Oh, it's.
No, nothing.
Our foolish mistake is that we read the prompt asking us to scan the crates, and then we opened the scan function, and then we scanned the crates. It turned out we were supposed to read the prompt and then click the tiny question mark in the corner of the window, which looks like it's just a help icon, but then that actually opens the correct scan feature.
Okay, good. So click on her comms.
Saja?
Yeah. Show map. And then like go to the objective. Question mark. Confirm.
And then we do it again?
And then she texts you again.
Oh
So
my
stupid.
god.
Zetas Lapidus.
Why would you? Zetas Lapidus? Xenon? Girl of the 21st century? Anyway, so. Why would you click on the get help feature if you're like, no, I found them. They're right here. I understand how to read a map. Are you serious? That's just, God, that's poor creation. I don't know, app creation.
I feel like we do now. I'm just gonna try scanning one.
So the first time we'd scanned the crates and completed the puzzles and seen what was in them, it had been registering them to the theme park side of the app and not the Star Cruiser side of the app because it's all one app and the app is horribly designed. So we had to scan all the crates a second time.
This sucks. This sucks. I wish we didn't have to do this.
This time, when we scanned the last crate, it had a holocron inside, and we got a text from the Saja indicating that we had completed the mission. While we were on our mission, we ran into a family having a totally separate issue in the app. For them, they had successfully gotten to the part of the app that scans the crates correctly, but there was a glitch where the final crate simply wouldn't scan, so they couldn't complete the mission.
Nope.
Huh, maybe it's angle. Here, let me try. Sometimes if you tilt it at a weird angle, like this, it'll scan better. Let's see. Yeah, it's really not getting it.
Yeah,
I wonder if someone scratched it. Like if someone scratched like the paint on it or whatever, so it's not reading.
it didn't work either.
That's weird. They talked to the Star Cruiser concierge, and apparently it was a known iPhone glitch, and the only way
iPhone
around it would have
glitch,
been to
never
borrow
mind.
a loaner iPad from Disney, but they would have had to start the whole mission over. Their kids were really disappointed and didn't want to do everything over, so they told us they were just going to give up on that mission, which I think is really sad.
Did you finish other
Yeah.
missions?
What do you mean it's a known iPhone glitch? Then fucking fix it.
If I just find where this
Jesus
precious car goes. I
Christ.
did all the main Halcyon ones.
Has anything like happened when you finished them, or no?
No.
Okay.
No, what about with you guys?
No. That's what I was asking.
Anyway, at that point, we'd had our fill of scanning crates. We used our fast pass for the Millennium Falcon ride, which automatically counted as completing a mission for Hondo Onaka, a character who isn't on the Star Cruiser, but he's the main character of the ride. He's from one of the cartoons. And I personally don't like him. That's not related to anything, I just don't like him on the show. Anyway, we were helping him get coaxium, a spaceship fuel. Then we used our fast pass for the Rise of the Resistance ride, which is a very fun ride. As I mentioned earlier, that one automatically counted as completing a mission for Captain Kevin. We had another mission in the app from Sammy. He wanted us to steal a TIE fighter, so instead of scanning QR codes on crates and doing phone puzzles, we would have been linking to the Bluetooth and control panels and doing phone puzzles. And we had another mission from Lenka Mock, but I don't know what she wanted. I didn't open the text thread. At this point, we've been in the park getting rained on for hours, and we were over it, so we went back early and changed into dry clothes and had a glorious buffet lunch. But in the interest of fairness, I watched a bunch of vlogs to see what the other missions we didn't get would have been like. And long story short, they were all roughly as boring as the one we did. On one hand, that's good because it means we weren't cursed to have the one boring mission. But on the other hand, that's sad because every mission was the boring mission. I heard there was at least one mission that sends you to the cantina to collect a message from the barkeeper, and that sounded a little interesting because the cantina is a cool place with a robot inside. And they built the cantina really small to cut costs, so you usually can't get in there without booking a reservation months in advance. But I found this vlog where they got the cantina mission. Lenka Mock texted saying, go to the cantina and show them this message to receive information from Olga. Olga is the alien bartender. She's like an off-screen character. Like there was a ton of concept art to do like an animatronic or maybe a walk-around suit, but then Disney cheaped out at the last minute, so now you just hear about her.
That's her office right up there. Okay. She can see me, every move I make, so you can trust me.
So this group goes to the cantina and they show the text at the door.
I think that we're going to be able to get inside Olga's cantina. Okay, we were not allowed to go in the cantina, but the host out front gave us this with the code on the back that you scan.
Yeah, it turns out that because they don't have a reservation, they're not allowed to go inside. The person at the host stand just hands them a coaster with yet another QR code to scan, and that completes the...
I'm not surprised this thing shut down. Like, Jesus. How expensive and how cheap everything is.
Where is the immersion? Yeah. There's so much stuff.
Expensive for us consumers, and Disney cheaped out as much as possible.
Like that. Like this guy gets a task to shut down the engine outside of Ronto Roasters. This is a food counter with pork wraps, and for theming, they have a spit of meat turning under a repurposed pod racer engine. The engine plays engine sounds and flickers red lights, so it looks like it's real. So he's been tasked with shutting it down. What a simple effect. To temporarily halt the lights and the sound effects. It's not very complex, but at least it's microscopically better than scanning crates, and it feels good to feel like you've affected something in the physical environment. But when this guy does it, the app tells him he's succeeded in shutting the engine down, and it doesn't even shut down.
Shut down the engine. We did it. Looks like it's still going to me, but I'll tell it that I shut it down. Finally, some peace and quiet. That's what they said.
All of the Batu missions are optional, but whether or not you do them determines which cutscenes you unlock when you return to the ship that evening. Theoretically. We saw that reflected in one case. We completed the crate scanning mission for the Saja, so we got summoned to the Lightsaber training pod to meet with Rey. She showed us a holocron and then was like, did any of you guys scan a crate with this in it? And then a bunch of people were like, yeah, because obviously 1 million people got the exact same crate scanning mission that we did.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So many of you. Thank you.
But some people didn't say yeah because they'd seemingly just been dropped into the scene at random.
Thanks for the
so maybe it didn't even matter that
Kindle.
we had done that mission. Maybe it was that broken clock thing I was talking about earlier, where it was just a coincidence that something we had done happened to align with something that happened later. Especially because that was the only time that happened for us the whole trip. Anyway, in this scene, Rey opens the holocron and a hologram of Yoda comes out.
Greetings. Open this, you have. Strong with the Force, you are.
To the naked eye, this effect looked really good. I knew it had something to do with these smooshed-looking Yodas on the ceiling angled inward, which is why I filmed them, but I didn't know in the moment how they were pulling it off. Apparently, the effect works like one of those LED alarm clocks. It's a dark room, so you can't see, but on camera, you can see the little metronome arm come up and start swinging. Then Yoda is projected down diagonally from the ceiling so that each of the two halves of the room can see it. I thought that was neat. Like I said, in person it looked very authentic.
May the Force be with you. Always.
A lot of people got this scene. Like, there were a bunch of people in our room, and there was another group watching the scene right before us, and another waiting to watch it right after us. But I'm told not everyone got to see it, just like a third of the people there, so that's a little special, I guess. If we didn't get to see The Rock scoot around in the climate simulator, at least we got to see this. So yeah, out of our entire time on the Star Cruiser, that was the only time anything we did in the gameplay even remotely reflected in any story moment ever. That one occasion. Don't get used to it. Our other unlocked scene was the Sammy scene, even though we had elected not to do that mission. He was like, thanks for helping me steal that TIE fighter, guys, but like, we didn't do that. He had asked us to, and we had callously ignored him.
We callously ignored him.
The first order fighter ship, the TIE Echelon. Listen, it would mean a great deal to me if you would, those who would solve that would reveal themselves now. Yes? Wow, thank you so much. I could not have done this without you.
So the Sammy scene was a bridge mission, and we got to use all the little arcade game consoles again, so that's fun. But it does kind of highlight another failure of the Choose Your Own Adventure system. In the end, it didn't matter that we had done those missions for Hondo or the Captain, and it didn't matter that we hadn't done the mission for Sammy. The illusion of free will was shattered. If anything, our schedule seemed to be determined by when we were booked for our dinner seating and which scenes had spots left over. And that didn't feel like living my Star Wars story. Part
doesn't
15,
feel like you
finale.
can do literally anything to affect your story or pick it at all.
This chapter contains spoilers for the Galactic Star Cruiser. Or, I mean, more than there have been in other chapters.
Hold on. Have I been going for an hour? How long is this? We'll wrap it this one, I think.
And I guess you're not going now anyway. Who cares? Why am I saying this? Immediately after dinner on the second night, I got the moment I had been...
Because this is a 4-hour-long video, and you're almost 3 hours in, and you're fucking tired. That's why, baby. Like, oh my God. Keep going, but geez.
Waiting for all weekend, the fake in-story alarm started blaring.
We've lost power. What happened? Wait,
Bus-
is Riley in here?
I see Sammy. Pretty sure the captain.
We're on auxiliary power.
Oh
my gosh.
What do you mean I'm eating? What do you mean get out? This is dinner. I'm eating. Fuck off. I'm taking this with me.
And we were all instructed to go to our muster stations in the atrium. I was so tired, but I was also excited.
This is a ship.
Travelers, get to your muster stations. It's not a trip. Keep your whole travel
But my food!
We get to the atrium and find out Lieutenant Croy knows there are Resistance fighters aboard, so he's taking control of the ship, he has his stormtroopers haul Sammy away, and Kylo Ren arrives to torture us.
Torture us! I got a bone to pick! It was dinner time! How dare you? How dare you? How McFucking dare you?
Rey comes to save the day. They have a big lightsaber fight. There's a lot of back and forth. I will say I was very caught off guard by this one part where Kylo Ren slams poor Rey's head into a banister. They even play like the hollow thump sound effect. I feel like the films were very careful to have him only fight her with the Force and a lightsaber, the more whimsical forms of fighting, presumably because kids' movies are very aware of the optics of a big man putting his hands on a little lady. So I just think it's funny that this concept completely escaped the theme park choreographer. Kylo finds out about Yoda's holocron and tries to take it. Rey gets the upper hand and runs away. This lightsaber fight is where all the budget went. It had all the kind of stuff I had been hoping to see all weekend, by which I mean they had used the fact they were purpose building this environment to rig it with special effects that were relevant to the story. They weren't sorcery or anything, like you could for the most part look at the effects and know exactly how they were doing it, but it was still fun. Kylo tries to use the Force on us and they use sound effects and flickering lights to convey this. Rey pulls out the lightsaber they had in all the ads, the one that actually comes up out of the handle like in the movies, and you can see she's super delicate with it and immediately sets it down out of sight and switches for the stunt lightsaber that can withstand being whacked into things, but that's fun. The holocron holocron is in the hands of one
I
of
feel like there was a better way she could have done that. Like the switch could have happened, but all right.
the Saja in the crowd below, and then Kylo Ren starts trying to take it with the Force, but then Rey Force pulls it into her hand all the way up on the balcony. This one happened so quick in person that I was like, how did they do that? But near as I can tell, it's a combination of misdirection and a pair of collapsible props. The Saja yells to get your attention, makes a throwing motion toward Rey, and the holocron flattens and goes up their sleeve like the birdcage in the Prestige. Then a sound effect calls our attention back to Rey, who is now holding a holocron, so your brain fills in the blanks and you imagine you've seen it soar into her hand. Enhanced further by the NPCs placed throughout the crowd, who swing their heads in an arc as if they can see it flying. Rey's holocron is also collapsible and it comes out of the railing in front of her. During the lightsaber fight, they have it choreographed so that they hit the banister with their swords at certain points, and at those points in the banister, there are these little spark shooting machines, so it looks like the lightsaber is hitting the metal and sparks are flying. My personal favorite is when Kylo Ren uses a force pull to bring Rey over to him, and they have a little conveyor belt that drags her along the walkway. I just think it's so cute in its simplicity, but everybody was hollering at it, including me.
I mean, that'd be pretty cool to see.
I mean, maybe the reason everyone was so hype is because we had been treated to so few special effects the rest of the time, so we forgot anything like that was on the table, but still, one of the biggest effects is when they have this big chandelier fixture at the top of the atrium break out of the ceiling and swing around. But I do think that was one of the only special effects that fell flat because there was too much else going on when it happened. A lot of people seem to not really process it when it's happening or know to look up there. It also doesn't help that, as I said before, Kylo Ren's dialogue is not pre-recorded. They have a real guy talking through a voice changer. And this makes it a little hard to understand what the heck he's saying at all times. So when he starts using the Force in the atrium,
Which
he threatens
is so weird, because it's like a pre-staged thing? So it's weird that they had him talking through a voice changer, but every single other thing here is pre-recorded.
And Kevin by saying, you'll talk when they scream. At least I think that's what he says. I think the idea is that that's the audience's cue to
Cheer 1 should have used Scream-O-Vision.
pretend they're being force tortured and scream. But on our cruise, I think no one understood what he said or what he was doing because I yelled and nobody else did and it was embarrassing, which is kind of its own form of force torture.
You talk when they scream.
By
There
they,
are a
he
lot of
meant
moments
me.
in the finale where some of the characters called out guests by name, which I thought was cute. Like they thanked their allies, or in Croy's case, he kind of playfully roasted guests who had been a nuisance.
I have had help from some of your passengers. And where are you at? And a loyal colleague and terrible spy.
Nobody mentioned
that's
us
cute.
because, you know, none of the characters knew who we were because we didn't get to participate in the game. But I can imagine how it would feel really exciting if that did happen. So that's fun.
Also,
to
it's just so disappointing because she's so into it, and you could tell that she tried to be so into it, and she tried to be like super involved, even though she was like, none of this is working, but I'm still going to try to make the most out of it. It's so heartbreaking.
imagine. I think it also helped that everyone had just had this intense 2-day schedule with many people running on very little sleep and everyone having paid so much money to be there. So it was a very receptive crowd. Everyone was screaming and cheering really loud for everything, which made it way more fun. Anyway, with all that said, I don't actually think these special effects reflect a high enough budget for what they were charging.
Nope.
To be clear, they were cute, and I liked it as a show in a vacuum, but it
Yeah.
doesn't at all justify the price tag. But just looking at it as like a show that you might catch at Disney World in the middle of the day, I did think it was effective and fun to watch. They also had a couple callbacks to earlier in the story. Like at one point in the fight, Rey is struggling, and the Saja have us all yell, "Together as one," to give her our energy, just like we learned in lightsaber training. And there were some good twists, like Rey gets disarmed, suddenly someone shoots at Kylo Ren. It's Chewbacca. Before he leaves, Kylo Ren gives an order to kill us all.
The Supreme Leader, some are loyal to the First Order.
Destroy them all.
What?
But then
Cheer
one
your family
stormtrooper
too.
aims directly at Lieutenant Croy. He unmasks, and it's Sammy in disguise. I really appreciated that they found a way to use all these supporting characters in the finale, not just because it's competent writing, but also because it made the staging of the show better. I was right at the front of the room, so I had a great view of all the stuff happening on the balcony, but missed some of the crowd moments because I couldn't see over people's heads. People in the back of the atrium would have had a more obstructed view of the stuff happening up high, but then they would be excited to have characters and story moments happening right next to them. So I think that was a good equalizer to make sure that no one viewing area felt like a lesser experience. I wish they had considered every show so carefully. So after the lightsaber fight is done and Kylo Ren leaves, we get a long wrap-up.
I would also be just forever salty about the pillar at dinner. I'd same girl.
Of all the supporting characters. Lieutenant Croy sees he's defeated, so he calls his commanding officer and says that there's nothing to report on the Halcyon, so they'll leave us alone. Captain Keevan gives a big speech wherein she awkwardly forgives everybody who helped the First Order, so nobody feels bad that their side lost.
Some of you received and relayed messages from the Resistance, and others aligned themselves very strongly with Lieutenant Croy. Allegiance can be a powerful thing when we feel strongly about a cause. We all think we're doing the right thing, or we wouldn't do it. But right now, the right thing is to come together. We all share one galaxy. Am I right?
Gaia escapes with the sacred stone to return to her people. Sammy is now a hero of the Resistance. Gaia escaped.
Okay, this actually happened a couple of hours before the finale, but it makes more sense for me to jump
with the
lump it
sacred
here.
stone to return to her people. Sammy is now a hero of the Resistance. Rey intends to bring Yoda's holocron to Leia to bring people hope. I love how awkwardly big the holocron is and how she just casually tucks it under one arm like a basketball. SK has the message from Yoda saved to their memory bank, so they must go with Rey. Lenka Mock is sad to say goodbye, but bids them a fond farewell. I hope this doesn't mean SK, died between this hotel and the Rise of Skywalker, because it's not like we see them again. Where did you put the droid, Rey? This is like when Disney lost my droid. They can't keep getting away with this. I was really tickled that Captain Keevan has this moment with the autopilot.
You may be a master of hyperspace, but I need somebody who can move a little quicker. Watch, this one's on you.
My pleasure, Captain.
I guess the ship's autopilot computer also had a narrative arc. Totally missed that one. And this last one is my very favorite. I said earlier that the Imagineers mentioned a romance story on board, and I had assumed that it was between Wraith Cole and Lenka Mock, but I was wrong. So during the finale, Wraith Cole stands up and is like, now that he—
Cheer one. Next time you go to Galaxy's Edge, ask Rey about what happened to SK.
Man, next time. I don't know when the hell I'm making it back to Disney World with their prices and price gouging.
Has learned to believe in himself or whatever, I am signing the guitarist Sandro as my new star act. And he will perform throughout the galaxy with his new girlfriend, Wani.
Sandro and Wani!
Yeah, it turns out all along these two characters had a whole romance plotline going on, which had gone completely over my head. I guess I was too dazzled by Wani to notice. The captain congratulates us all on a successful voyage. They start projecting a fireworks show outside the space windows and playing Star Wars score, so this is basically the end credits. As everyone is drawn forward into the bridge to watch the fireworks, the characters discreetly make their way out of the atrium, never to return. And the guests are told that a farewell dessert reception awaits in the cafeteria. After the finale, we were so tired and not at all hungry, and I think a lot of people felt the same way because it seemed like a lot of them went directly back to their rooms. But we've gone to and documented everything else we possibly could, and I'm a completionist, so I thought we had better go. You know, what if there are new menu items? What if something cool happens? And it turns out I'm super glad we did. As we were sitting down with our blue popcorn and sci-fi flavored foams, who should appear but the happy couple Sandro and Iwani here to debut their first single.
Hey!
So we traveled quite a distance.
Aww.
Who could have known Iwani had the voice of an angel? Not me, because I didn't know she was singing in the Gaia set, because I...
They have blue milk. It's in the, they have a soda fountain that has blue milk in it. Yeah, go ask Ray what happened to SK. I don't know. Historically, Disneyland isn't really that much cheaper than Disney World, but it might be now. I don't know. I've got bad feelings about Disney and a lot of the changes they made since COVID. So
Couldn't see her.
This is where we're meant to be. One galaxy.
I loved this performance, and the reception was open seating, like at lunch, so we got to choose our own Star Wars table, and it just so happened we had picked one with a fantastic view. So even though I had effectively missed the Gaia performance, I did at least get this opportunity to see Iwani play her alien instrument and sing a song, which was what I had most wanted to see the whole trip. Also, the song was very catchy.
They gotta drop that single on Spotify.
They do.
This was such a good way to go out, the definition of ending on a high note. So yeah, I wouldn't have any improvements to suggest about the finale chunk of the night. That was all really fun. It might have been more meaningful to me if I'd been allowed to engage with any of the story beforehand, but taken in isolation, it felt like a perfectly fun theme park show. Part 16.
Okay, I don't know what part 16 is about. Oh, it says cut corners on the bottom. Okay, we're gonna stop here for tonight as far as this video is concerned.